I was under my 1987 Chevy K10 when the doorbell rang for the third time in 5 minutes, and I knew exactly who it was before I even slid out from beneath the truck. The temperature outside had dropped to -15 degrees Fahrenheit, standard for January in Duluth, Minnesota, and my heated workshop was the only reason I could work on anything mechanical during these brutal winter months. I had built the detached structure 3 years ago on my 2-acre property in the Woodland Heights subdivision, complete with proper insulation, radiant floor heating, and all the permits anyone could ask for. The city had approved everything. The county had approved everything. Hell, even my insurance company had given me a discount for having such a well-constructed outbuilding. But apparently, none of that mattered to Patricia Mooreland, the newly elected president of our homeowners association. I grabbed a shop rag, wiped the grease from my hands, and headed toward the side door that connected the workshop to my house. Through the frosted glass, I could see Patricia's familiar silhouette, her arms crossed in that aggressive stance she seemed to think made her look authoritative. Next to her stood another woman I recognized as Denise something or other from the HOA board. "Mr. Victor Whitmore," Patricia announced the moment I opened the door, not bothering with pleasantries. "We need to discuss your illegal structure immediately." The cold air rushed in, making me step back. "It's -15 out there. Come inside." "This will only take a moment," Patricia said, but she stepped in anyway, followed by Denise. Both women wore expensive winter coats and boots that had probably never seen actual work. Patricia was somewhere in her late 40s, with that specific haircut that seemed to be required for HOA presidents everywhere. Shoulder length, heavily highlighted, and styled to perfection despite the weather. "My workshop isn't illegal," I said, keeping my voice level. "I have all the permits." Patricia pulled out a folder from her designer bag. "Perhaps from the city, but you never received HOA approval. According to Section 7, Paragraph 3 of our covenants, conditions, and restrictions, any structure over 120 square feet requires HOA Architectural Committee approval before construction." "The workshop was here when I bought the house 3 years ago," I said. "The previous owner built it." "That's irrelevant," Denise chimed in, her nasal voice matching her pinched expression. "The current homeowner is responsible for ensuring all structures comply with current regulations. We've updated the CCR since then." I took a deep breath, reminding myself that losing my temper would not help. "Fine. I'll submit an application for approval. Retroactive, I guess." Patricia's smile was thin and cold. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. The new regulations prohibit heated detached structures over 200 square feet. Yours is 800 square feet. You've got to be kidding me." "Insurance liability," Patricia said, her tone suggesting she had practiced this explanation. "The HOA's insurance carrier has concerns about fire risk. My workshop has a state-of-the-art electrical system, fire suppression equipment, and I'm a certified mechanic. I've been working on vehicles for 20 years without a single incident. Nevertheless, the structure must be demolished or the heating system permanently removed by February 1st. Patricia handed me a formal letter. "This is your official notice. Failure to comply will result in daily fines of $200, plus legal action to force compliance." They left before I could formulate a proper response, and I stood there in my entryway, staring at the letter. February 1st was 2 weeks away. That evening I called my buddy Marcus, who had dealt with HOA issues in his own neighborhood. "They can't just make you tear it down," he said over the phone. "Get a lawyer, fight it." "That could take months and cost thousands," I replied, sitting at my kitchen table with a beer I wasn't really enjoying. "Meanwhile, they're racking up fines. What's the alternative? You need that workshop. Half the neighborhood brings you their vehicles because you're the only honest mechanic within 30 miles who doesn't charge dealer prices. He was right about that. My reputation for fair work had spread throughout Woodland Heights and beyond. I charged reasonable rates and did the job right the first time. During winter, people depended on me to keep their vehicles running in the extreme cold. Without my heated workshop, I would have to shut down until spring. Let me do some research, I told Marcus. There has to be something in the original CCRs that protects existing structures. Over the next 3 days, I became an expert in homeowner association law. I learned that Minnesota had specific statutes governing HOAs, including provisions about retroactive enforcement and grandfather clauses. I discovered that the original 1998 CCRs for Woodland Heights had indeed allowed heated workshops, and while HOAs could amend their rules, they could not retroactively apply them to existing structures without a supermajority vote of all homeowners. Armed with this information, I prepared for the next HOA board meeting, scheduled for January 20th at the community center. I printed out relevant statutes, copies of the original CCRs, and my building permits. I even paid $300 for a 1-hour consultation with a real estate attorney who confirmed my interpretation. The community center was already packed when I arrived 15 minutes early. Apparently, word had spread about the workshop issue, and a lot of my neighbors had shown up. I recognized Tom Henderson, whose F-250 I had fixed last month. Sarah Chen, whose Subaru would not have survived last winter without a new heating system I had installed at cost. Even old Mr. Kowalski was there, and he rarely left his house. Patricia called the meeting to order with a sharp rap of her gavel. The board sat at a long table facing rows of folding chairs. Patricia in the center, Denise to her left, and 3 other members whose names I had never bothered to learn. Before we begin with regular business, Patricia announced, we'll address the issue of Mr. Whitmore's non-compliant structure. I stood up. I'd like to speak about that. You'll have your turn during homeowner comments, Patricia said dismissively. This directly concerns me. I should be able to address it when it's being discussed. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Patricia's jaw tightened, but she nodded curtly. Fine. You have 3 minutes. I walked to the front and laid out my case methodically. I explained the grandfather clause in Minnesota state law. I showed the original CCRs that explicitly allowed my type of structure. I demonstrated that the HOA board had not held the required supermajority vote to retroactively enforce new restrictions on existing buildings. Furthermore, I concluded, the previous owner, James Morrison, built that workshop with full HOA approval in 2019. I have the approval letter right here. So not only is this structure grandfathered under the original CCRs, it was also approved under the newer ones. I held up the faded letter I had found in the property documents. Patricia's face had gone red, and not from embarrassment. This was pure anger at being challenged. That approval was granted under different board leadership and doesn't reflect current policy, she said. Current policy can't invalidate past approvals without just cause and proper procedure, I countered. I spoke with an attorney. You need to either withdraw this enforcement action, or I'll be forced to file a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment and illegal retroactive enforcement. The room erupted in applause and supportive shouts. Patricia hammered her gavel repeatedly. Order. We will take this matter under advisement and respond in writing within 10 business days. Meeting adjourned. She gathered her papers and stormed out, her board members scrambling to follow. Several neighbors came up to shake my hand and offer support. About time someone stood up to her, Tom Henderson said. She tried to find me last month because my Christmas lights were still up on December 26th, said they violated the holiday decoration timeline. She sent me a violation notice because my grass was 3.5 inches tall, Sarah Chen added. The CCRs say 3 inches maximum. She actually measured it. The stories kept coming, and I realized Patricia had made enemies throughout the neighborhood. She had been president for only 6 months, but had already established herself as a tyrant with a tape measure and a chip on her shoulder. I went home feeling optimistic, certain that my research and public pressure would force the board to back down. That optimism lasted exactly 4 days. On January 24th, I received a certified letter from the HOA's attorney. Rather than withdrawing their enforcement action, they had doubled down. The letter cited various technical violations. My workshop's color did not exactly match my house. The door faced the wrong direction according to some obscure aesthetic guideline, and the ventilation pipe extended 3 inches higher than the allowed maximum height for roof penetrations. Each violation carried a $200 daily fine, effective immediately. The letter concluded by stating that if I filed a lawsuit, the HOA would countersue for legal fees and place a lien on my property for all unpaid fines. I called the attorney I had consulted with. His retainer alone was $5,000, and he estimated the case could cost anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 to properly litigate, taking potentially years to resolve. During that time, the fines would continue to accumulate. They're banking on you not having the resources for a prolonged legal battle, the attorney explained. It's a common tactic. They know they'll probably lose eventually, but they'll make it so expensive and time-consuming that you'll give up. I thanked him and hung up, feeling the walls closing in. I did not have $40,000 to spend on lawyers. My savings were healthy enough for emergencies, but a multi-year legal battle would bankrupt me. The temperature dropped to -23 on January 27th. That morning, Tom Henderson called me in a panic. My truck won't start. It's completely dead and I have to be at work in an hour. I'm a site supervisor on the new hospital construction project. If I don't show up, we have 60 workers standing around doing nothing. Bring it over, I said. I'll get you running. Patricia will fine you. She's been driving around watching your workshop, waiting for you to use it. Let her watch. People need help. Tom arrived 20 minutes later on a flatbed tow truck he had called. We pushed his F-250 into my workshop, and I immediately identified the problem. His battery cables had corroded through inside the insulation, invisible from the outside but causing intermittent connection failures that had finally died completely in the extreme cold. 45 minutes and $80 for parts, I told him. I'll have you on the road. While I worked, 3 more neighbors showed up with vehicle problems. Sarah Chen's Subaru was making a grinding noise. Mr. Kowalski's old Buick was leaking coolant. A woman I did not know named Jennifer had a minivan that would not shift out of park. Word had spread through the neighborhood's Facebook group, which I did not even know existed, that I was open for business despite Patricia's threats. By noon, I had fixed 7 vehicles and had 5 more waiting. Patricia arrived at 1 p.m. in her pristine white BMW X5, parking in my driveway and marching to my workshop door. I was replacing a starter motor on a Honda Accord when she barged in. This is your final warning, Mr. Whitmore. You are operating a commercial business in a residential zone, using a non-compliant structure in direct violation of cease and desist orders. I'm documenting everything. She held up her phone, recording video. I'm helping my neighbors in an emergency, I said, not looking up from my work. There's no law against that. You're accepting money. That's a commercial transaction. Section 12 of the CCRs explicitly prohibits home-based businesses without special permits. Then I won't charge them. I looked at the elderly owner of the Honda. No charge, Mrs. Phillips. Glad I could help. Mrs. Phillips, who had to be 80 if she was a day, glared at Patricia. You should be ashamed of yourself. This young man is the only reason half of us can get to the grocery store or doctor appointments in this weather. The rules apply to everyone equally, Patricia said, her voice rising. That's what keeps property values high and our community desirable. My property value doesn't mean much if I freeze to death because my car won't start, Mrs. Phillips shot back. Patricia left, but I knew this was not over. Sure enough, the next morning I found a notice posted on my workshop door. The HOA had filed for an emergency injunction to padlock my workshop, citing public safety concerns and repeated violations. The hearing was scheduled for February 2nd. That same morning, the temperature hit -31 degrees. It was the kind of cold that made your nose hairs freeze instantly, where exposed skin developed frostbite in under 5 minutes. School was canceled. The city issued a cold weather alert, urging people to stay indoors except for emergencies. And that was when Patricia's plan backfired spectacularly. At 6 a.m., my phone started ringing. Denise from the HOA board. Mr. Whitmore, I know we've had our differences, but my car won't start. Can you help? My workshop is a non-compliant structure being used for illegal commercial activity, I said flatly. According to your president, I should be shut down for public safety reasons. Please, I'm not Patricia. I just voted the way she told us to. I have to get to work. I'm a nurse at St. Luke's. I sighed. Fine, but I want it in writing that you'll vote to withdraw all enforcement actions against my workshop. Done. I'll write it right now and bring it with me. Denise arrived 30 minutes later with a handwritten note on HOA letterhead. Her Nissan Altima needed a new battery, simple enough. While I worked, she talked. Patricia has her own agenda, Denise said quietly, as if afraid of being overheard. Her husband owns Mooreland Property Management. They manage HOA accounts and maintenance contracts. She wants to establish rules that require all homeowners to use approved contractors for everything. Contractors who pay kickbacks to the management company. That's illegal. Of course it is, but it's hard to prove. She's been systematically eliminating anything that gives homeowners independence. Your workshop undermines her whole plan because people come to you instead of the approved contractors who charge 3 times as much. This explanation made a disturbing amount of sense. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of being bullied into voting her way, and because my kids need me to be able to get to work. She paused. Also, Patricia tried to find me last week because my mailbox is allegedly 2 inches too far to the left of my driveway. She's gone completely power mad. By 10 a.m., I had worked on 14 vehicles. By noon, 23. The extreme cold had killed batteries, frozen fuel lines, and caused all manner of mechanical issues throughout the neighborhood. My phone rang constantly. At 2 p.m., I got a call from a number I did not recognize. Mr. Whitmore, this is Councilman Richard Torres from the city of Duluth. I've heard about your situation with the HOA. Several constituents have contacted my office. Is it true they're trying to shut down your workshop in the middle of this cold snap? That's correct. That's unconscionable. I'm calling an emergency city council session for tomorrow morning. The city has authority over HOAs in matters of public safety. If your workshop is helping residents survive this weather emergency, the HOA's actions could be creating a dangerous situation. I appreciate that, Councilman. Stay open. Do what you need to do. I'll make sure the city attorney is present at that injunction hearing. Things were looking up, but the real turning point came at 4 p.m. when Patricia herself called. Her tone was different, lacking its usual sharp edge. "Mr. Whitmore, I need to discuss a business arrangement." "I'm listening." "The HOA owns 3 pickup trucks and a large SUV for maintenance operations. All 4 vehicles are currently non-operational due to the cold weather. Our regular mechanic, Precision Auto, cannot send a mobile service truck in these conditions, and their shop is backed up for a week. We need these vehicles operational immediately." I let the silence stretch out, enjoying the moment. "I'm prepared to offer you a temporary contract to service HOA vehicles," Patricia continued. "Standard rates, plus a premium for emergency service. My workshop is a non-compliant structure that poses public safety risks," I said. "At least, that's what you claimed in your injunction filing this morning. I'm willing to table that matter pending further review." "Not good enough. I want all enforcement actions withdrawn in writing, signed by the entire board. I want formal HOA approval of my workshop as it currently exists. And I want it acknowledged in writing that I can continue helping neighbors with vehicle repairs without being accused of running an illegal commercial operation. That's extortion. No, that's negotiation. You came to me, remember. I'm perfectly happy to let you figure out your vehicle problems on your own." Another long silence. "What's your rate for the work, for you? Triple my normal rate. So that's $300 per hour, 4-hour minimum per vehicle, payable in advance. That's outrageous. So is trying to shut down my workshop during a life-threatening cold snap because of some power trip. Take it or leave it." She took it. 20 minutes later, a very uncomfortable board member named Gary showed up at my door with a cashier's check for $4,800. And a signed letter from all 5 board members withdrawing the enforcement actions and granting formal approval for my workshop. The letter even included an apology for administrative misunderstandings. "Patricia is waiting at the community center with the trucks," Gary said. He looked embarrassed. "For what it's worth, I never agreed with any of this. She runs the meetings like a dictator. If you don't vote her way, she makes your life hell. Why don't you vote her out? We're trying. There's a recall petition going around. After this stunt, we should have enough signatures." The HOA trucks were a mess. The batteries were dead on all 4 vehicles, but that was just the beginning. The trucks had been poorly maintained. Dirty fuel filters, ancient spark plugs, and oil that looked like it had not been changed in years. The SUV had a frozen coolant line that had cracked and leaked. Patricia watched me work with barely concealed fury, but she could not say anything. Not when she needed me. The other board members who had accompanied her looked apologetic and kept their distance. "These vehicles are in terrible shape," I told Patricia after assessing the situation. "This isn't just cold weather problems. This is neglect. When was the last time they had regular maintenance? We have a contract with Precision Auto for that." "Well, they're not doing their job. If I'm going to get these running, I need to do it right. That means proper repairs, not temporary fixes. We're looking at 12 to 16 hours of work total." "Fine. Just get them operational." I worked until midnight, taking breaks only to help 3 more neighbors who stopped by with emergencies. Tom Henderson brought me dinner from his wife, homemade chili and fresh bread. Sarah Chen brought coffee. Mr. Kowalski insisted I take a $100 bill even though I had not charged him. "You take it," he said firmly. "My wife needs dialysis 3 times a week. If our car doesn't run, she misses treatment. That's life or death. You take the money." By the time I finished with the HOA trucks, I was exhausted but satisfied. All 4 vehicles ran smoothly, and I had documented every problem I found with photos and detailed notes. Patricia signed off on the work at 12:30 a.m., her expression sour. "The recall petition has over 300 signatures," Gary mentioned as they prepared to leave. "We only need 200 for a valid recall election. You'll probably be getting a formal apology from the next board president." True to his word, Councilman Torres showed up at the injunction hearing on February 2nd with the city attorney, but it was unnecessary. Patricia's lawyer filed a motion to withdraw the injunction request before the hearing even started. The judge was not amused. "Let me be clear," Judge Morrison said, looking directly at the HOA's attorney. "If this court receives any more frivolous filings regarding Mr. Whitmore's workshop, I will consider sanctions against your client for harassment. A man helping his neighbors during an emergency is not a public safety threat. Wasting this court's time with petty neighborhood disputes during a weather crisis is shameful." Patricia was not even present. According to Gary, who attended the hearing, she had called in sick. The recall election happened 3 weeks later. Patricia fought it, hiring an attorney to challenge the petition's validity, but the Homeowners Association bylaws were clear. With over 400 signatures, the recall went forward. Patricia lost by a landslide, 412 votes for removal, 89 against. The new board president was a retired teacher named Barbara Hoffman, who immediately began reviewing all of Patricia's policy changes. She called me personally to apologize and to ask if I would be willing to serve on a new architectural review committee that would focus on reasonable standards rather than arbitrary enforcement. "We also want to investigate the contracts Patricia approved," Barbara said during a coffee meeting at my kitchen table. "Several homeowners have complained about being forced to use specific contractors who charge excessive rates. If there was fraud or kickback schemes, we need to know." I gave her the documentation I had compiled about the HOA truck's maintenance, showing that Precision Auto had been billing for services they clearly had not performed. Barbara's expression grew grim as she reviewed the records. "This is exactly what we suspected. I'm forwarding this to the police." The investigation moved quickly once it started. Precision Auto's owner, a man named Derek Sutton, had indeed been paying Patricia's husband 20% of all invoices for HOA business. But it went deeper. The roofing company on the approved contractors list had paid similar kickbacks. So had the landscaping company and the snow removal service. Over 3 years, Patricia and her husband had collected nearly $90,000 in illegal payments, all while forcing homeowners to use overpriced services and threatening fines for anyone who tried to do their own work or hire independent contractors. The police arrested Patricia and her husband in early March. I watched from my workshop as the squad cars pulled up to their house, 4 doors down from mine. Patricia emerged in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled, screaming about persecution and conspiracies. Her husband followed silently, head down. They were charged with wire fraud, extortion, and theft by swindle. The contractors who had paid kickbacks faced charges as well. The local news covered the story extensively, and suddenly Woodland Heights was famous for all the wrong reasons. But within the neighborhood, the atmosphere improved dramatically. Barbara and the new board rescinded most of Patricia's arbitrary rules. The approved contractor list was eliminated entirely. Homeowners could once again make their own choices about repairs and maintenance without fear of fines or retaliation. My workshop became something of a neighborhood institution. I set up a formal schedule, offering discounted rates to Woodland Heights residents. I was not trying to get rich, just helping people and doing work I loved. During the summer, I expanded the business slightly, hiring Marcus as a part-time assistant. The legal proceedings against Patricia and her husband stretched into the fall. In October, they both pleaded guilty to reduced charges rather than face trial. Patricia received 18 months in federal prison and was ordered to pay full restitution. Her husband got 12 months and 5 years probation. Precision Auto lost its business license, and Derek Sutton faced his own criminal charges. The other contractors paid fines and settlements, but mostly avoided jail time by cooperating with prosecutors. On a cold evening in November, almost a year after the whole mess started, I was closing up the workshop when Barbara stopped by. "I wanted to thank you again," she said. "If you had not stood up to Patricia, who knows how long her scheme would have continued." "I was just trying to keep my workshop," I said. "You did more than that. You reminded everyone that communities work best when people help each other, not when petty tyrants make up rules to benefit themselves." She handed me an envelope. "This is from the HOA's insurance settlement." Patricia had to pay back everything she stole, and the board voted to distribute some of the recovered funds to people who had been most affected by her policies. "You helped dozens of neighbors during that cold snap, often for free. This is just a small token of appreciation." Inside was a check for $5,000. "I can't accept this," I said. "You can and you will. It's not charity. It's compensation for helping keep this neighborhood running when our own HOA president was actively working against us." Barbara smiled. "Besides, the vote was unanimous. Even if you refuse, we will just donate it to charity in your name, so you might as well take it." I took it. That winter was just as cold as the previous one, but my workshop stayed open without interference. I kept busy, helping neighbors and building my reputation. Tom Henderson referred his entire construction crew to me. Sarah Chen told everyone at her office. Even Mr. Kowalski, who passed away peacefully in his sleep in December, had mentioned me in his will, leaving me his collection of vintage automotive tools that his own son had no interest in. The new HOA board operated smoothly under Barbara's leadership. They focused on actual community improvement, organizing neighborhood events, maintaining common areas, and mediating disputes fairly. The Architectural Review Committee, which I had joined, approved projects based on reasonable standards and safety concerns, not arbitrary aesthetics. Patricia sent a letter from prison in January, addressed to the HOA board. Barbara shared it with me over coffee. It was a rambling, self-justifying mess that blamed everyone but herself. The board for not supporting her vision, the homeowners for being ungrateful, me for undermining her authority, even her own lawyer for not fighting hard enough. "She still does not get it," Barbara said, shaking her head. She genuinely believes she was helping the community. "Some people are so invested in control that they can't see the damage they cause," I replied. "Well, she has plenty of time to think about it now." In February, almost exactly 2 years after Patricia had first shown up at my workshop door with her ultimatum, the neighborhood threw a winter festival. It was Barbara's idea. Ice sculptures, a chili cook-off, sledding races for kids, and a warming station where people could gather and socialize. I volunteered my workshop as one of the warming stations. We set up folding tables and chairs, served hot chocolate and coffee, and people rotated through to escape the cold between activities. My workshop, the same building that Patricia had tried so hard to eliminate, became the heart of the community event. Tom Henderson won the chili cook-off. Sarah Chen's kids dominated the sledding races. And at the end of the day, as I was cleaning up, at least 15 different neighbors stopped by to say thank you, not just for hosting but for everything. "You know what the difference is between you and Patricia?" Gary, the former board member, asked as he helped me stack chairs. She saw the neighborhood as something to control. You see it as something to serve. That's leadership. I had never thought of myself as a leader. I was just a mechanic who wanted to work on vehicles in his own heated workshop. But I suppose there was truth in what Gary said. Leadership was not about power or control. It was about serving others and standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. The workshop remained my sanctuary and my livelihood. The equipment hummed with purpose. The concrete floor radiated gentle warmth, and the smell of motor oil and metal was home. Every vehicle I repaired, every neighbor I helped, was proof that I had made the right choice in fighting back. Patricia's attempt to shut me down had backfired in every possible way. She had lost her position, her freedom, and her reputation. Meanwhile, my workshop thrived, my business grew, and I had earned the respect and gratitude of my entire community. Sometimes late at night, when I was alone in the workshop finishing up a project, I thought about that first confrontation. Patricia standing in my doorway, so certain of her authority, so convinced that rules and regulations gave her power over others. She had been wrong, and that mistake had cost her everything. But I took no pleasure in her downfall. It was simply the natural consequence of treating people as obstacles rather than neighbors, of wielding authority as a weapon rather than a responsibility. The HOA, like any organization, was only as good as the people running it. Under Patricia, it had been a tool of oppression. Under Barbara, it was becoming what it should have always been, a way for neighbors to work together for mutual benefit. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Got a guy with a dead battery on Maple Street. Wants to know if you can help. I texted back. Be there in 10 minutes. I grabbed my portable jump starter and headed out into the February night. The temperature was -18, the stars brilliant in the clear black sky. My breath frosted in the air as I climbed into my truck, which started instantly thanks to the heated garage where it had been parked. The heated workshop that Patricia had tried so hard to eliminate. The workshop that had saved her own trucks when she needed it most. The workshop that had become a symbol of community resilience and individual rights against arbitrary authority. I drove through the quiet streets of Woodland Heights, past houses with lights glowing warmly in windows, past driveways where neighbors had helped each other clear snow, past the community center, where the new board met monthly to actual applause instead of resentful silence. This was what a neighborhood should be. People helping people. Rules serving the community, not the other way around. And a heated workshop where a mechanic could work in peace, help his neighbors, and make an honest living without fear of fines or legal threats from power-hungry HOA presidents. Patricia had learned that lesson the hard way. The rest of us were just grateful we did not have to learn it along with her. As I pulled up to help another neighbor in need, my workshop waiting warm and ready for whatever challenge tomorrow would bring, I realized I would not have had it any other way.